Good afternoon and welcome to Module 3. Today's video is going to be pretty brief. I just briefly want to talk about what is in this module. Most of what you're going to learn is honestly going to be learned through doing the material in the module this week rather than a lecture from me. And then just a few housekeeping tips about how I'm grading, how to learn about the grading that I'm doing, and then just some reminders about the discussion postings that I want you to remember. So first off, wow, we're almost to October, so believe it or not, you have completed a full month of school, which is hard for me to believe. I have been out of town last weekend, so I apologize if any of you contacted me and I was a little late. I'm still catching up on grading. Had a family emergency and went out of town to be supportive to my family. And then I'm also going to be going out of town, not this weekend, but next weekend, so leaving next Thursday. So I'll be doing my best to keep up on emails and stuff while I'm gone, but there may be a few times when I'm not immediately able to answer you, and I'll, like I said, I'll do my best to get back with you. But just so you know, I am going to be traveling a little bit in the next couple of weeks. So basically a really quick overview of this module. I don't want to spend a lot of time, like I said, lecturing about it because this is a pretty practical and hands-on module. And what that is finding out and learning about the resources available to you through our library. And then there's also, at least, I can think of at least one item that I'm having you look into that's just freely available online, and that's Google Scholar. Some of you may have used it, some of you may not have, but I'm including that in the resources that I want you to sort of discover this week, because it can be a really useful tool for you in your work, when you're researching for a paper or when you're trying to find out if something's credible or not. Google Scholar can be helpful to you. So, like I said, this week most of the stuff that we're covering is pretty hands-on, pretty practical, so there's going to be quite a few videos for you to watch, or a few kind of step-by-step either infographics or tutorials that you'll look at to learn how to use library resources to the best that you can. Right up front, I'd like to say most of these resources that we're going to cover will take practice to get comfortable using. So if you go to any of the databases, the research databases, which is what we're going to start looking at this week, and find that your first search isn't that satisfying of a search, don't give up after the first search. It takes a lot of practice to get comfortable using these, and that's why we're easing into it. In your discussion posting this week, you're going to be choosing a topic, choosing a database to search, and then finding an article and sharing that article's citation in APA format. So that's just like get your feet wet if you haven't already. I know I have at least one person in this class that is a senior, and so you've probably done quite a bit of this. Maybe you'll learn something new about searching through research databases and research sources, scholarly research sources. And if you've never used a research database and you're here in this class, then this module will be a good way to sort of get your feet wet. As always, I welcome a personal contact from you if there's something that we cover and you feel like you didn't get it, or if you'd like to kind of see it demonstrated. I would be happy to either set up an appointment with you, or an appointment in person, or if you would want to do a video chat or something like that so I can explain a little more how to use any of these resources, feel free. One other thing I want to mention while I'm thinking about it, some of these research databases that we're going to be introducing this week will require, if you are not accessing them via campus Wi-Fi, wireless internet, if you're not accessing them using campus wireless internet, you will be required to have a username and password. Many of you, if you are new students this semester, have received an email from me this year already saying, hey, this is what your username and password is. If you didn't receive that email from me, you can contact me You may already know what your username and password is. I can tell you usually it's going to be first name dot last name for your username. So for me, Stephanie.Owens. If I were a student, it would be Stephanie.Owens for the username. And then a password is usually some iteration of the first 4 letters of your last name and then a 4 or 5 number digit ID number that you will have and probably use in other places. So that is something that you'll need potentially if you're completing this either at home, or if you go study in a coffee shop and you're not using campus internet, or students that study online. You're going to need those ID numbers. Of course, those usernames and passwords. Of course, you can always access Google Scholar, but if you're using the library provided research databases, you will need that information. If you don't have it, if you can't find your email, if you've tried all the passwords you can think of, contact me and I'll do my best to get that for you. I do not set those username and passwords. They are set up by our IT department. So I would suggest that you don't wait for the very last minute to do that assignment, the discussion posting assignment, where you'll be kind of playing with some of the databases, doing some preliminary searches, because you may, if you can't access that, you may wish to reach some of us for assistance. And if you contact us at 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, it's unlikely that I'll be able to get that information for you before the assignment is due. So just something to think about. I wanted to say something up front so you can start thinking about it. I think that's it as far as what I wanted to talk about this module specifically. Here are a few housekeeping, we'll call them housekeeping things I want to mention specifically about the class. First of all, first and foremost, make sure you're reading the grading notes I give you. Sometimes I just use them as time to say, hey, good to have you in class, or good point, or thanks for pointing that out. Other times, I will leave you grading notes that say, hey, such and such is missing in your response. Would you like to fix it? Or, hey, I think you may have unintentionally forgot a citation to quote. You quoted somebody and you didn't share where you got that. Why don't you fix that? Other times I'll be just giving constructive feedback. So make sure you're reading and looking for those grading notes. There have been a few of you that have had issues. Part of it's my fault. I set up some of the assignments incorrectly. Some of you have accidentally submitted participation reports before you're finished with them. If I see that happens, like you got a 0 because you didn't answer any of the questions in the participation report, I'm going to go back and click allow retry, and then I usually give a note like, hey, I'm not sure you meant to do this. Go ahead and retry it. So make sure you're reading your grading notes. That's part of the way I provide personal interaction and personal teaching moments for you. So read those. The other thing I would like to mention is specifically about discussion postings, just some feedback on how some of you might be able to increase your grade, or things that maybe some of you are forgetting. First, there are going to be, as you probably noticed, there are going to be discussion postings where I require that one of you respond to another. Each of you responds to another student. That is an easy way to bump up your grade for discussion postings, is just to make sure that you are doing that and responding to a classmate. The other thing is to watch your word count. I don't require a specific word count on 100% of the posts, but on the majority of the posts, I do ask you to reach for a specific word count. That doesn't mean that I necessarily want you just to fill space with words, but it means that I want you to interact with the material enough that you reach a certain word count in your writing about it. So watch the word counts, watch that you're replying to one another. Those are both easy ways to bring up your grade on discussion postings. The other thing, and this is something I'm starting this week, I started the discussion postings with a little bit fewer requirements, just to get you in the habit of posting and replying to one another. And wanted to mention today, I'm adding, it's not a new component, it's in the syllabus if you read the syllabus requirements for discussion postings, but it hasn't been graded on up to this point. Beginning this module, I am starting to grade on this. And that is your professionalism in your posting. So that would include capitalization, punctuation, grammar, and how substantial your post is. So if I've asked you to respond to something, I say it needs to be substantial, but I didn't give you a word count, it does still mean that you need to interact with the material. So for example, I think in the last discussion posting, I asked you to explain in your words what you felt like information literacy was. So if you just, if someone were to just say, information literacy is about finding things, and leave it at that, that would not be considered a substantial post. A substantial post would be maybe describing information literacy's definition is, and quote someone and give them credit for the quote, and define information literacy and say, what this means to me is that I will know how to find information, I will know how to know what kind of information I need, and so on and so forth. So the point is that you are interacting with the material and putting that into words. So I'm not going to be extremely hard on you about this. I don't expect you to write like you're finishing your doctorate degree and working on your dissertation. No expectation of that level of writing. My expectation is that you're doing the best you can do. And part of that, like I said, is that the post is substantial and shows me that you have, in your way, interacted with the material, and then that it's professional. So by professional, and I'll explain what I mean by professional, that would mean that you're observing capitalization, punctuation, and grammar standards. That there's periods at the end of your sentences, that you capitalize I when you're talking about yourself, that to the best of your ability you're trying to use correct grammar and say words that fit in the format of the sentence. Part of that is just good writing, and so I think I catch myself sometimes in emails like responding as though I'm just responding to a text. Sometimes that's fine. Sure, fine, I'll be there in 5. Sometimes we respond to emails that way. I view these discussion postings as part of your academic experience, and so in that I am shooting for a professional tone when I talk to you, and then also when you post back in the class. So part of it, like I said, just good writing. Part of it is because in a professional world, there's a certain tone you take when you respond to emails. You want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, so you're capitalizing things and using punctuation and all that. So those are the 2 aspects I want you to consider, is how am I presenting myself and is this good writing? And that's kind of how I view professional writing. Like I said, I'm not expecting at all, hear me, I'm not expecting you to write as though you're on a doctoral dissertation level. Not at all. I am wanting to encourage you and push you in the direction of professional and good writing. And so, like I said, starting in this module, that is going to be a consideration I'm starting to consider in grading. Like I said, I started out, wanted you to just get in the habit of posting and responding, and I've told you some things you can work on. Make sure you're replying if I require a reply. Make sure you're shooting for that word count if I require a specific word count. And then now we're adding in the professionalism and substantial posting component. So again, this is just kind of like pulling together what we've already done and pulling together what we're going to do going forward, and just some reminders for you if you're concerned about, hey, why am I always hitting a certain grade? I should be getting a higher grade. These are some ways you can check, did I hit at word count? Did I reply to a classmate? Did I do my best? Did I proofread to see that I'm trying to present myself in this posting in a professional way? So, again, any of these things, if there are things you have questions about, I'm happy to talk about them with you. not expecting you to write a book, not expecting you to, have a dear sir and madam professional business letter. Just asking you to look at those grammar, punctuation, writing conventions. And again, read your grading notes, because I will be pointing out, I do my best to point out, I can't promise I do it 100% of the time, but I really try to point out the reasons I marked grit points off on your grade. So, contact me if you have any questions, and I think that's it. I hope you have a great weekend.